from the heart of our nation's capital, here's Family Research Council President Tony Perkins.
Well, good afternoon. Hope you've had a fantastic week. Hard to believe it's already Friday, but here we are. I'm Jody Heiss, your host on Fridays, and welcome to this edition of Washington Watch. I am extremely honored to be with you, and thank you so much for entrusting your time, with us as we're bringing you the key news items from a Christian worldview perspective. Let me give you the highlights of what we'll be discussing today. The name Robert L. Peters. It appears maybe the vice president at the time, Biden, used that as an alias for business dealings throughout his time as vice president.
This is something we've been talking about for a long time. The Democrats and their friends in the media try to say there's no connection to Joe Biden. Every day there's more connections. And I think these emails today are consistent with the timeline that shows exactly what the real quid pro quo was in Ukraine. It was Joe Biden, not Donald Trump.
Wow, that was House Oversight and Accountability Chairman James Comer yesterday on Fox Hannity. Congressman Comer has requested the National Archives for files to further his committee's investigation. We'll be talking about this with Congressman Nathaniel Moran here in just a few moments. And speaking of disregard for the law, policies from the left have sowed crime and chaos throughout American cities with dramatic increase since the summer of 2020. Well, what are the solutions to all the crime? Bishop E.W. Jackson, who is a politician, a minister, and a lawyer, will be joining me shortly to discuss that. And probably not many of you know this, but Armenia became the world's first formal Christian nation in AD 301. But today, Christians in that region of the world are facing immense persecution as a military blockade threatens to starve them out.
We're deeply troubled by the closure of the Lachin corridor, which has cut off access to essential goods and exacerbated the humanitarian situation. Access to food, medicine, baby formula, and energy should never be held hostage.
That was U.S. Representative to the United Nations Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield speaking at an emergency UN Security Council briefing on Wednesday. And former U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, Sam Brownback, will be joining me to discuss the crisis that's unfolding in Armenia and how we all need to be supporting and praying for our brothers and sisters in Christ there. And it's that time of the year again when students are returning to school. Well, Fairfax County, Virginia, which is the largest school district in Virginia, has now become the third district north of Richmond to defy Governor Glenn Youngkin's common sense guidelines for gender identity and parental rights. So we'll be discussing about this and wrapping up an incredible week on Washington Watch covering the educational beat. So we've got a lot to unfold for you this evening. Again, glad to have you joining us. And just by way of a reminder, if you miss any portion of today's program, or if you'd like archives of previous programs, you can always catch it at our website, tonyperkins.com. That's tonyperkins.com. And of course, there's tons of resources available there for you. So whether you miss the program or not, we encourage you to check it out and take advantage of the resources. All right, let's jump into the program for today. Yesterday, House Oversight and Accountability Chairman James Comer requested the National Archives to hand over any communications that document President Biden's using an alias for business during his time as vice president. And among some of the names that allegedly he used is Robert L. Peters. And this seems to fit a pattern of behavior from the president. As House Oversight Committee compiles all sorts of evidence, President Biden had a lot more involvement with his son's business affairs than he's admitted. So what possible innocent explanation could there be for this business alias name? Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Nathaniel Moran. He serves on the House Judiciary Committee and the Foreign Affairs Committee and the Committee on Education and Workforce. He represents the 1st Congressional District of Texas. Congressman Moran, welcome back to Washington Watch. Great to have you.
Jody, it's always great to be with you. Thank you so much.
Well, listen, this is a hot potato right now. What a potential bombshell as Chairman Comer and the Oversight Committee continues to uncover this condemning evidence of the president's involvement with his son's business, when he's been claiming all along that he had no involvement. What's your reaction to the latest development here?
Well, I'm so glad that we have Chairman Comer and also Chairman Jordan at the helm pushing, and add Jason Smith to that on the Ways and Means Committee, pushing for answers, building a case. As a lawyer and as judge, I can tell you, I've seen many cases developed over the years, and sometimes it takes time. But what happens when people begin to tell lies is, over time, as you discover more evidence, you begin to put that squeeze on them, and you back them into a corner where it is quite evident on multiple occasions that the lies are being told left and right. Here, I don't know what to call the president anymore. Do we call him Robert Peters or Robin Ware, or do we call him JRB Ware? There's so many names now out there that Chairman Comer is having to go after. But I got to applaud him. And I'll tell you, and the American people should be rest assured in the fact that we have great leadership in these positions for oversight and accountability and for judiciary and Ways and Means, where we are systematically building a case. It's not a politicization of an issue. It's not going after somebody because they're on the other side of a political party. That's not the case. We're holding up the legal standard and saying, apply the facts to the legal standard, and you'll see that the law has been violated here, and we want answers.
Yeah, Congressman, I think that is an excellent point. As we have been covering this throughout, you have, and you're right, there's tremendous leadership right now coming from the Republican chairman, but not just the chairman, it's the members of those committees like yourself who are heavily involved in pushing this forward. And there is a systematic approach. I feel confident that you're going to get to the bottom of this. And it seems to me that some Democrats are aware, too, that you're going to get to the bottom of this. I noticed today that White House counsel Stuart Dellery is making plans to leave that position in the White House. Do you think it's perhaps because he smells smoke in the White House, so to speak?
Well, when I read that story, I couldn't help but thinking about that frog that's in that pot of water that all of a sudden starts getting a little hotter and a little hotter. And the frog naturally wants to jump out and get away from that boiling water before it gets too hot. And frankly, I think that's what's going on here. I think that counsel for the president realizes things are fixing to get really bad really quickly. And again, it's not because of any political pursuit of the president because he's a Democrat and we have Republicans in charge of the House. It is because the rule of law must mean something in this country. And it does mean something to Republicans across the board who say, you know what, we need to go through this. We need to develop the facts. We're not going to rush to judgment, but these facts are becoming overwhelming day after day, and they're building on one another.
Absolutely. And, you know, when the rule of law is ignored at the top, it has a rippling effect all across the country, and we're certainly watching that. In fact, we're going to be dealing with the rising crime all across the country, and I can't help but believe that many people look at what's happening to the top of our country and leaders at the top, and basically with the attitude, if they break the law, then we can too, kind of thing. So you're exactly right as you put that forward. Let me, if I can, Congressman Moran, switch gears with you a little bit, as you also serve on the Judiciary Committee, and that committee chairman, as you mentioned, Jim Jordan. But he recently subpoenaed the DOJ and the FBI for documents related to their work with big tech to censor the First Amendment protected content of the American citizens. What do you expect to happen with this as things go forward?
Well, you're going to see more of what was exposed in Judge Doty's opinion. I think it's in the Western District of Louisiana about a month ago or so, or it was on 4th of July, actually, which was very apropos. He issued a preliminary injunction in that Missouri versus Biden case. And it was very interesting because as a federal judge, he took more than 100 pages to go through and systematically set out all of the violations that had occurred that provide a substantive basis to tell the president and the executive branch, you cannot communicate with social media on these issues, because going back in the past couple of years, it was quite clear. They wanted to put the crimp down on voices of opposition out there by the American people on social media platforms. And the White House was not shy about reaching out to Facebook or Twitter or whomever to say, we don't like that post. We don't like that thread. We need you to do something about it. And as I read through that opinion, I tell you what, it made my skin crawl, because that is the very essence of chilling the First Amendment. We had an executive from the very top and his staff telling social media to stop free speech on their platforms because they didn't like the opinions. They didn't like the content. That's the very essence, the very heart of the First Amendment. So I think as Chairman Jordan pushes forward on this, we're going to see even more of that. We're going to see more of what we saw in the Twitter files that were turned over after Elon Musk took over. We're going to see more of the blatant examples of the administration coming down hard on those that disagree with them. And that shouldn't happen either from a Democrat or a Republican.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it is so chilling. I mean, when you think about something like the First Amendment under direct attack like this, it really is, it's mind-boggling. It consists of the type of things that none of us ever dreamed we would see in America. But also, if I can go further with some of the issues you're dealing with in the Judiciary Committee, the Federal Trade Commission may have allegedly at least destroyed documents that your committee has been seeking. Are we seeing a pattern here that when they see smoke, in order to have the fire, they just destroy documents, they destroy evidence? What's going on here with that situation?
Very concerning to the FTC over there. I don't know if it's a matter of cover up or incompetence, because I've questioned Chairman Khan under oath before here in the last few months. And when you talk to her about what's going on in the FTC, whether or not it's trying to get rid of non-compete agreements or get rid of independent contractor relationships or get rid of franchise relationships, there is a real incompetence at the FTC in their behavior substantively and procedurally. And we're hearing a lot of whispers about the administration over there just not able to function on a day-to-day basis. So whether or not this was an act of negligence or intentionality, it was wrong, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
What do you think you will get to the bottom of it? Because, to be honest, there's a part of me that would give a sigh of relief if it's incompetence. But given the makeup of this administration and the agencies that are taking deliberate actions against our constitutional rights and so many other things, it does raise a red flag of concern. Do you anticipate you'll get to the bottom of it?
Well, we're going to do our best. And it just takes time to build that case. I'm going to go back and say that. And I was on a teletown hall today, and my citizens, my constituents are frustrated because it seems like we can never get to the end point. And I get that. I feel that frustration. We're doing our best to follow the rules and follow the rule of law, to hold people accountable. We have one half of one third of the government, and we're doing the best we can. We're going to continue. What we can guarantee is we're not going to stop. We will not stop. We're going to keep pushing as hard as we can with leadership like Jamie Comer and with Jim Jordan and Jason Smith at the helm. I'm confident we're going to get to some answers.
Congressman Nathaniel Moran of Texas, thank you so much for joining us this evening on Washington Watch. Keep up the great work. All right, friends,
Joey.
After the break, many American cities continue to slide towards lawlessness. We'll follow up and keep you informed on why right after the break.
In recent years, Christians have seen an accelerated assault on not just our core beliefs, but their very foundation. Now is the time to build on that foundation, strengthen our faith, and learn how to translate our beliefs into actions that engage the culture around us. That's the purpose behind this year's Pray, Vote, Stand Summit. Believe and engage. Pray, Vote, Stand Summit is a national gathering of spiritually active, governance-engaged conservatives, or SageCons. We'll hear from Christian leaders, worldview experts, government officials, and more. We'll discuss important issues like the sanctity of life, religious freedom, protecting students, strengthening families, praying for our nation, and how you can impact America's future from a biblical worldview. Together, we can believe and engage. Join us September 15th through 17th in Washington, D.C. for this pivotal event. Register now at PrayVoteStand.org.
Everything we do begins as an idea. Before there can be acts of courage, there must be the belief that some things are worth sacrificing for. Before there can be marriage, there is the idea that man should not be alone. Before there was freedom, there was the idea that individuals are created equal. It's true that all ideas have consequences, but we're less aware that all consequences are the fruit of ideas. Before there was murder, there was hate. Before there was a Holocaust, there was the belief by some people that other people are undesirable. Our beliefs determine our behavior, and our beliefs about life's biggest questions determine our worldview. Where did I come from? Who decides what is right and wrong? What happens when I die? Our answers to these questions explain why people see the world so differently. Debates about abortion are really disagreements about where life gets its value. Debates over sexuality and gender and marriage are really disagreements about whether the rules are made by us or for us. What we think of as political debates are often much more than that. They're disagreements about the purpose of our lives and the source of truth. As Christians, our goal must be to think biblically about everything. Our goal is to help you see beyond red and blue, left and right, to see the battle of ideas at the root of it all. Our goal is to equip Christians with a biblical worldview and help them advance and defend the faith in their families, communities, and the public square. Cultural renewal doesn't begin with campaigns and elections. It begins with individuals turning from lies to truth. But that won't happen if people can't recognize a lie and don't believe truth exists. We want to help you see the spiritual war behind the political war, the truth claims behind the press release, and the forest from the trees.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Washington Watch. I'm your host, Jody Heiss, Senior Vice President here at the Family Research Council. An honor to be filling in for Tony, who's taking some time off, and we appreciate you joining us as well. All right, yesterday, Washington, D.C. officials announced that they are going to enforce the city's juvenile curfew law in high crime areas. Now, keep in mind, this is in Washington, where the murder rate has risen 27% just over last year. There have already, just this year alone, 80 minors have been shot in Washington, D.C. And look, Washington is just one example that I've singled out here out of many cities in our country that are seeing dramatic rise in crime and a spirit absolutely of lawlessness. And this type of thing does not just happen. It's the result of specific policies that Democrat leaders have adopted in our cities. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Bishop E.W. Jackson. He's the founder and senior pastor of the Called Church in Chesapeake, Virginia, as well as the founder and president of Stand America. Notably, he is a gospel minister with a degree from Harvard Law School. Bishop Jackson, thanks for joining me today. Great to have you.
Hey, Jody, it's an honor to be on with you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it is always great to see you. And listen, you know this as much as anyone, what's happening here across our country. And you speak out to this and other issues. You are a powerful voice to this. And look, I've singled out Washington, D.C. But to be very honest, I could have mentioned a number of major cities that are experiencing a rise in violent crime. And it's really been going on since the summer of 2020 with the whole defund the police type movement. But give me your input. What do you think is behind all of the lawlessness that we're seeing?
Jody, you mentioned staying true to America's national destiny. One of the projects that we're working on is called the Forgotten Children Project. You mentioned the 80 children shot in Washington, D.C. Jody, there have been over 400 innocent children killed, murdered in the cities of our country since 2020. We have been chronicling those children. If people go to the ForgottenChildrenProject.com, they'll see pictures of all of these children in that gallery. It's heartbreaking, Jody, and you're right. The Black community is told that the problem is racism. But as a member of the Black community, I can tell you the problem is not racism. The problem is the breakdown of the family. The problem is the breakdown of something you were alluding to earlier, or one of your spots was a sense of moral order, a sense of right and wrong, with no fathers in the home to teach these young men that manhood is about responsibility, taking care of your wife, your children, going to work to earn what you need to take care of your family, rather than killing somebody, harming somebody because you think they disrespected you. So the problems are really spiritual, much, much more than they are social. But no, there's no question that we've got to address them. As you know, it's one of the reasons why I'm running for president of the United States, because I want to bring that message to the nation that we've got to turn back to God and family if we hope to have a secure future for our country.
Well, Bishop, I tell you, that is the issue. There's no question in my mind. Of all the issues we're facing in this country, it all boils down to a spiritual problem. And until we honestly address that and quit kicking God out of the public square, but, you can't have a real authentic understanding of morality without the belief ultimately in God and that we're going to stand before him. But I look at all the crime. I'm sure you saw this past week. San Francisco is gotten so bad there that they're literally asking employees in the city's federal buildings, they've been instructed to work from home this month because of the high crime. Just stay at home. Don't even come in. How is it tenable for a major American city to operate like this?
You know, Jody, interestingly, I just got off the phone not 15 minutes ago with a friend of mine who lives in San Francisco. And he said that he and others are discussing leaving because the city, he said, it's a dystopian nightmare. There are literally people lying around all over the street. But look, let's face it. As you said it earlier, when you kick God out, when you say that there are no absolutes, there are no ultimate moral rules, I am not accountable to anyone but myself, then you open this up to anarchy and chaos. And that's exactly what we're seeing in San Francisco. My concern, obviously, is that this not become the vision that ends up capturing America. We want our country to be a place of safety and peace and prosperity and security for all. And that's going to be really coming back to the vision of our founding fathers, who believe that our rights and our liberties and ultimately our accountability is first and foremost to our Creator.
Absolutely. And some of our viewers were able to see some of the flash rob video that we were just showing while you were talking about some of these things. What should some of the solutions be? When we're talking about our leaders in these big cities, what type of solutions should they be working on? What would you like to see take place?
Short term, let's fully staff our police departments, number one, because they've been decimated by this defund and dismantle the police movement. Number two, we've got to elect prosecutors, folks, who actually believe in enforcing the law. We've got a bunch of George Soros prosecutors and others who are frankly inspired more by a collectivist and Marxist worldview than by our Constitution and our Judeo-Christian values. You've got to get rid of these people and make them elect prosecutors who are actually going to enforce the law for the safety and security of law-abiding citizens in these communities. And long term, Jody, we've got to begin to talk about how do we rebuild families. Nobody wants to talk about that because it's difficult, it's intractable, but we've got to start somewhere. We're talking about creating the two-parent monogamous male, female, husband, wife family again, and raising children in those families. That's going to be the most stabilizing thing we can do for the future of our country.
Thank you, Bishop E.W. Jackson. You are a powerful voice, and we are so grateful for the so many issues that you stand on so eloquently and from a Christian perspective. And we are grateful that you've taken time to join us this evening on Washington Watch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jody.
God bless. Have a great weekend. All right, friends, I do want to tell you that this segment, by the way, has been sponsored by FRC Action, which we're always honored to cooperate with them. Coming up next, Armenia was the world's first Christian nation, but now it's a region of the world that is dying due to persecution. It's an incredible story. I'll tell you more about it right after the break, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
All of us are born with the desire to find truth and meaning. Where did I come from? What happens when I die? While our answers to these questions may divide us, we are united in our need for the freedom to answer life's biggest questions and make life's biggest decisions for ourselves. That's why religious freedom matters for everyone. Religious freedom matters because the powerful have long wanted to control those who are less powerful. Religious freedom matters because the freedom of those who are different is often threatened by those who believe different is dangerous. Leah Sheribu, a Christian teenager in Nigeria, remains a captive of Boko Haram for her refusal to renounce her Christian faith. Chinese pastor Wang Yi is serving a 9-year sentence for speaking publicly against the Chinese government. All of this because people in power decided different is dangerous. At the Center for Religious Liberty at Family Research Council, we promote religious freedom for everyone because the only alternative is religious freedom for no one. We encourage Americans and the American government to engage and advocate for the persecuted, and they do. We work every day to bring good news to the afflicted, to proclaim liberty to captives and freedom to prisoners. We do it because that's what Jesus does. We work to give freedom to others because we ourselves have been set free.
Good afternoon. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Welcome back to Washington Watch. I'm your host, Jody Heiss, and thank you for joining us. All right, the nation of Armenia. This is where the apostles Thaddeus and Bartholomew actually first took the gospel. It literally became the first country to officially embrace Christianity in AD 301. But now, Christians in the enclave of Artsakh are surrounded by the Muslim nation Azerbaijan, and that nation has imposed a military blockade on the road that supplies food and access literally to the outside world. So medical supplies have become an issue. Food has become an issue. It's become quite an ordeal. And I don't know of anyone who knows more about this than my next guest. Joining me now to discuss this dire situation is the former U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, Sam Brownback. Ambassador Brownback, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always great to see you, sir.
Hey, it's a pleasure to join you, and thank you for covering this topic. This is one that just a lot of people don't know about, but is really a difficult and becoming a dire situation.
Well, give us some of the background. Let's go into this because you're right. Most people are not aware of what's happening there. So just kind of give us the 30,000-foot view of what's some of the background and what's actually happening.
Well, what's actually happening is you've got this kind of replay that we've seen throughout the Middle East of an ancient Christian population being strangled and run out by a radical Muslim country and individuals. We've seen it throughout much of the Middle East, and now it's happening in this enclave of Artsakh, others call it Nagorno-Karabakh. That's a group of Armenian Christians. It's about 120,000 that are located there that are surrounded by Azerbaijan. They shouldn't be, but this was the divvying up of the land under Joseph Stalin. They often pitted various ethnic and religious groups against each other. And now you're seeing it just continue and being played out today as the road going in, the Lachen corridor, is being shut off by Azerbaijan. And you got these 120,000 Christians being strangled and starved to death. And winter's going to be approaching. And it's something we really need to stand up. And the thing about it is, too, the United States has some leverage here to be able to change this situation on the ground.
All right, so let's talk about that. What is the leverage? What is the possible involvement that the U.S. has here?
We sell weaponry to Azerbaijan, as does Israel. And we've got a section called 907 sanctions. That's a number in bad parlance in Washington, D.C. You refer to so many things by number, nobody knows what the number means. But that number actually means that we sanction Azerbaijan, and you cannot send weaponry there unless the president waives those sanctions. So right now, by a pen, Joe Biden can stop the weaponry going in, and he can tell the Azeris, unless you open up this corridor, we will send no more U.S. weaponry into Azerbaijan. That's significant leverage.
It is significant leverage. What is the potential of that leverage being utilized?
It's significant if we push on the president. If people will push on their congressmen, if there's a substantial Armenian community in the United States, because so many of them have gotten driven out by prior genocides. There was one there 100 years ago during the fall of the Ottoman Empire. If we will just push and say, Mr. President, no more weaponry to Azerbaijan. And we also should press our allies in Israel, no more weaponry. And then I think also on top of this, we ought to press on Turkey. They're the ones really behind this. Erdogan wants this pan-Turkish, this old Ottoman Empire reconfigured, reconstituted. He wants to take this land. And I think we ought to be telling Erdogan no, and in no uncertain terms, no. And we will use sanctions against you if you keep pressing this.
Well, all of this obviously requires leadership, Mr. Ambassador. I know you know this, and sometimes leadership only rises to the occasion when there's pressure placed on them, and that's where we, the people, have a significant amount of leverage ourselves, as you were just describing with our representatives and so forth. You said that winter is approaching, and so, I mean, it seems to me by that statement that it's a rather urgent time. I mean, now is the time to act. Is that correct?
It is, before it gets worse. I mean, they're already strangling them. A lot of medical supplies are in very short order. A lot of foods are in very short order. And then you start shutting off the natural gas, heating oil going into the region. This is just going to become unlivable. And that's exactly what the Azeris want. They want the Armenians to just walk out and leave, like what has happened in so much of the Middle East, and they'll end up immigrating to the United States or to Europe because they're asylum seekers, and there is a reason for this. But at the end of the day, you've forced out yet another historic population, and we really should use the leverage we have here and no more weaponry. And why would we allow our weapons to be used against an ancient Christian population in the Middle East that's being forced out, so they have to come to the United States? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous, and that's a question I have. Why are we doing that? Unfortunately, our time is running out, but that is a question that demands an answer. Why is this taking place? Thank you, Ambassador Sam Brownback. You are a great leader and a great man standing for truth and biblical principles. Thank you for joining us this evening on Washington Watch.
My honor. Take care. God bless you all.
God bless you as well, my friend. All right, folks, after the break, the largest school district in Virginia has defied their governor's guidelines in order to pursue the LGBT agenda. We'll bring that story your way right after the break.
It begins here, and here, and here, every day. Before you stand, you need solid ground. Standing in a culture that wants you to surrender the truth won't work unless you have a firm foundation. At Family Research Council, we have that firm foundation, and you can find us standing. We stand for the value of all human life. We stand for the right of families to flourish. And every day we stand for your freedom to believe and to live out those beliefs both at home and abroad. We work with government officials, educating them on the issues from a biblical worldview. And when necessary, we hold them accountable. We equip Christians across America to be informed and to take action in their communities. With our daily radio program, television appearances, and vast online presence, we reach people where they are. We envision an America where all human life is valued, families flourish, and religious liberty thrives. And that won't be realized if we're not standing. Stand for faith. Stand for family. Stand for freedom. Stand with us at FRC.
I'm often asked by people, Tony, how do you stay encouraged? How do you deal with all of the stuff in Washington, D.C., the negative policies that are attacking our faith, our family, and our freedoms? Well, you want me to let you in on the secret? It's called the Word of God. And that is why the Family Research Council embarked on Stand on the Word, a 2-year journey through the Bible. It's a chronological Bible reading plan with just 10 to 15 minutes a day. In 2 years, you will have covered the entire Bible. And to go along with this, Monday through Friday, I do a morning devotional that goes along with the reading of the day. It's all designed to encourage you on this journey because the Word of God, as the psalmist said, in my affliction, here's my comfort. Your Word gives me life. That is our source of strength. To find out more, go to tonyperkins.com or frc.org/Bible. And I invite you to join me every morning for our Stand on the Word Bible devotion.
This fall, believers from across America will gather in our nation's capital. We'll hear from government leaders, policy experts, and leading Christian voices, learning how we can engage in government at every level, from local school boards to state legislatures to Congress and even the White House, to win back the soul of our nation. Join with us for the Pray, Vote, Stand Summit, Believe and Engage, September 15th through 17th. Register now at prayvotestand.org.
FRC celebrating 40 years with Senator Ted Budd.
I just want to thank you for what you all do each and every day. You're digging deep on these issues. You really help articulate things that help us with policy here and help us communicate to the folks back home that send us to Washington. So thanks for the fight that you're in, and we're in it with you. Thanks so much.
Senator Ted Budd from North Carolina, a great friend. He and I shared a Bible study together, and a dear, dear brother in the Lord. Thank you for those comments, Senator. And for each of you, I do join with Senator Budd in hoping you'll be able to come join us September 15th through 17th in Washington, D.C. at this year's Pray, Vote, Stand Summit as we celebrate 40 years of standing for faith, family, and freedom. We hope to see you there. It's only a month away. So we hope that you'll come join us and bring some with you. It's going to be an absolutely incredible event. And registration is open right now. You can find out more detail and also register at prayvotestand.org. Prayvotestand.org. All right, as many of you know, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin highlighted parental rights in education as a major focus of his winning campaign in 2021. Well, Governor Youngkin's Department of Education released model guidelines that school boards are required to adopt. These guidelines include common sense approach to gender identity with male and female separated spaces as appropriate. Things like parents being informed of what's going on with their children. Well, this week, the Commonwealth's largest school district, that would be Fairfax County, they became the third district in Virginia to say that they are going to defy the governor's model policy and instead stick with LGBTQ ideology. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Victoria Cobb, the president of the Virginia-based Family Foundation. Victoria, welcome back to Washington Watch. Great to see you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, listen, first of all, let's just go down this. I'm curious how the code in Virginia works. I mean, can Fairfax County and the other counties actually do this? Aren't they violating the law? I thought this was required.
So this is such an interesting thing here in Virginia because, of course, we have code sections, but rarely have they ever said, we're going to issue guidelines, but localities shall adopt them. That's a little bit of a tongue twister, honestly, for the average school board to interpret. But this started originally under our previous governor. This was their way of trying to force localities to adopt bad guidelines. And so Governor Youngkin is just coming in here and updating them with good guidelines. And so it is a little tricky. We do think education should be handled by the locality as best as possible, but Governor Youngkin's model policies actually line up with our code, whereas our previous governors violated the code. And that is that in Virginia, parents have a fundamental right to direct the upbringing of their child, including their education. They have a right to know. And so Governor Youngkin's guidelines are consistent with the law. And so school boards really are almost in violation of our code when they choose not to adopt them.
Yeah, that's what it appears to me. It looks like they're setting themselves up for a major legal problem if they continue to fight the governor in this, because, as you say, it's clear in state law. I want to play a clip for you and get your remarks. This was actually comments that made last month by a concerned mother, Jenny Gentles, at a Virginia Board of Education business meeting. Play clip 4,
I just
please.
regularly claim that parents can't be trusted, presuming that they will harm their children. Yet the presumption should be that parents can and should be involved in their children's lives, and that their children are loved. These parents love their children.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the bottom line. Yeah, it looks like it looks like this school board. Yeah, let me just say this, and I want your reaction. The school board is saying they know better than the parents, it seems to me. But give me your reaction.
She is exactly on point. This is what every parent across Virginia is trying to say. Look, we want to direct the lives of our children. We want to be involved in the lives of children. No one knows better than a parent. And the idea that any school administrator, some person is going to step between a parent and child and hide things from a parent. And that's what the old guidelines did. They really encouraged schools to deceive parents. And so you sit there and wonder how we ever got in the business of thinking that some adult knows better than a parent.
Yeah, I mean, that seems so common sense. It's stunning. There are some that are saying there's a difference between this is just like what you just referenced, what's happened before. For example, Russell County rejecting the previous policies. How does that compare with what's happening now in Fairfax County?
Yeah, that's right. When the former governor issued policies, there were school boards that bucked those policies, and we encouraged them to do that because those policies violated parental rights. We actually went to court with our Founding Freedoms Law Center and tried to litigate them to say, look, they are illegal guidelines. They conflict with more fundamental statutes in our code. The judge threw it out because he said we weren't a school board and school boards had to have standing. And so we still never got to litigate that. But this parent is saying exactly what we know. And Russell County was violating parental rights. In this case, we have Fairfax County trying to say we know better than parents.
Well, Victoria, I just, you are in a major battle right now, and I just want to say thank you for standing firm. Your courage and your stance just inspires others to do the same thing. And we here at FRC are extremely grateful for what you and the Family Foundation are doing. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me. And ultimately, it's all about the parents who are standing up. We're just here to provide resources, so we're thrilled to do that.
Keep the torch ablaze. All right, continuing the discussion of education and parental rights, what we're seeing in Virginia really is just one example of school districts that are gripped literally with LGBTQ ideology. Well, with me now to talk about this is FRC's Senior Fellow for Education Studies, Meg Kilgannon, who served at the U.S. Department of Education in the Trump administration. Meg, always great to see you. Thanks for joining me this afternoon.
Thanks for having me back, Jody. It's really great to see you.
Well, listen, before we talk about California, New Jersey, and wherever else we want to talk about, I'm sure you just heard what we're just talking about in Fairfax County. Anything else you'd like to add about that?
Well, I'll just say that when I, as a mom of 4 with kids in public school, found out that my school board was going to start letting boys in the girls' bathroom and letting children identify as the opposite sex under this, fever dream that is gender identity. I started going to school board meetings. I'd never been before, and I started to go, and I was expecting a lot of people from Washington, D.C. to be there, because this is a bedroom community of the nation's capital where I live. And I didn't find many Washington, D.C. groups, but who I did find there was the Family Foundation from Richmond, Virginia, coming to defend the rights of Virginia's parents. And I'll be forever grateful to them for providing resources to us and for understanding that this was a real problem when some national groups were still not really getting it. We're the people who are on they talk about leading economic indicators, and family groups deal with leading cultural indicators. And it's issues like this that happen at the local level that are sometimes happening there before they really get to Washington, D.C. And
absolutely,
I'm a huge fan of theirs. So I really appreciate the work that they do.
Yeah, we are too, Victoria. They're all just doing a great job. All right, let's go from Virginia all the way to the other side of the country, California. We have another school district over there that is now considering a policy of requiring its schools to notify parents or guardians that their child is transgender. Give us the latest on what's happening there.
Right. Well, you had Chino Valley, and we spoke to the school board member from Chino Valley that led that fight to get the right for parents to be notified if their child starts identifying as the opposite sex in school. Then Morita Valley followed suit, and now Orange County is considering the same. So this is spreading across the state. The idea that parents should know what's happening to their children in school is, I think, a pretty basic value that probably is an 80% issue in the United States, right? And so this is wonderful to see. It's great that it's continuing. And one of the great things about the guidelines in Virginia is that they define a transgender student as a student whose parent says they are transgender. And now, while you and I, of course, would disagree with that whole concept, the fact is that children are coming into public schools presenting themselves there thinking that they are the other sex, and the school does have to deal with that. So the Virginia policy really puts the parents in the center of things and says that the school can't do anything for the child unless the parent is going along with this from the very beginning. So the cow is already out of the barn, though. In California, they just are wanting the parent to be notified if the child is being encouraged to do this in school, right? If the child is presenting this way in school. So it is really a backward situation in California and so many other states who have these kind of policies that are to affirm gender identity. And that's a really important difference.
It is, and you just wonder why the effort to keep parents uninformed about major issues happening with their children. It just makes no sense. So we go from Virginia to California. What I'm trying to illustrate here to our viewers and listeners is this type of thing is happening everywhere. And for people to think that somehow this is not coming to their state or their region, it's already probably there, just not yet making national attention. But New Jersey, for example, the administration of Governor Phil Murphy there is suing 3 different school districts that want to keep parents informed. So, I mean, here again, the government attacking the right of parents to be informed. Your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, and so we could have a similar situation in Virginia. Ironically, if the Attorney General of Virginia decides that he's going to make sure that these policies are enforced in Virginia, we would have a similar situation where an attorney general would be suing a school board, but it would be Fairfax County School Board who's not enforcing a policy, right? I mean, I just can't help but think, Jody, that we are going to end up in front of the Supreme Court pretty quickly here when you have these kinds of tensions playing out all over the country. And I think it's also fair to say that when we passed civil rights laws in the 60s, no one at that time envisioned the kind of scope of application of civil rights that we're seeing now across the country that are including these, paraphilic sexual rights that are being attributed, they're being given the same status as traditional civil rights law. So this is going to come to a head. And it's really weighs on me that it's the children who are caught in the crossfire in the meanwhile. They're being led into these beliefs and encouraged in these beliefs that are just impossible to achieve. It's the very work of childhood to form your identity, right? Every child is questioning who they are and what they're going to be when they grow up, who they're going to be. And we know that, God has a plan for each and every person. You're unique and unrepeatable, and He has a plan for your life, and it's our work to discover that plan. So this effort to confuse children is just so very, very disturbing, and we really need to get it resolved as quickly as possible.
Absolutely, because these are decisions that alter the entire trajectory of these children's lives. We have terrible examples, as you've mentioned, that are taking place all across the country. But you and I know, as believers, we know God is in control. God is our anchor. He is there. And we need to remember right now, as these children are going back to school, many parents, grandparents really have no idea what their children are going to face as they go back into the classrooms. And so here we are, not only parents and grandparents and so forth, but members of the FRC community, members of the body of Christ at large. This is a time we need to be praying for these children and their families as they're returning to school. So if you can close us out here in the next couple of minutes, Meg, just perhaps some of the resources that we have, but more broadly, how can we be praying for these children and their families as this new school year begins?
Well, one of the things that the activists say on the other side of this issue is that the school cannot keep secrets from you as a parent if you're engaged with your child. And on the face of things, that's true. But we all know as parents, everybody's been in a family, right? We know it's complicated. It's messy. God puts us there for a reason, right? So we can have that support and discover ourselves and do it in a loving environment. But those environments aren't perfect. And so while every parent loves their child, every child has a bad day, and so does a parent. So we need to pray for families. We need to pray for people who are put in families together, that they will make the best of that situation. Because when you are in a loving family and you're the product of a loving family, it's like a superpower. So it's a supernatural power, right? And so we need to make sure that that's the case.
30
so
seconds.
We need to pray
Give
for
us some
families.
resources.
We need to consider running for school board. And if you're considering running for school board, you can go to frc.org/schools and find our school board boot camp. In your state, there's a family policy council. There'll be resources for you probably on the state websites too. And you can find all those links on our website.
Outstanding. Meg Kilgannon, always great to have you. I don't know of anyone who has a better grip on the educational issue happening in our country than you. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Jody.
All right, friends, hope you have a fantastic weekend. Be sure to go to church and focus on the Lord. Get others praying also for our country and for this new school year. We'll see you next week right here on Washington Watch.
Washington Watch with Tony Perkins is brought to you by Family Research Council and is entirely listener-supported. Portions of the show discussing candidates are brought to you by Family Research Council Action. For more information on anything you've heard today, or to find out how you can partner with us in our ongoing efforts to promote faith, family, and freedom, visit TonyPerkins.com. Also, to leave a comment about Washington Watch, call our watch line at 1-866-372-7234. That's 1-866-372-7234.